Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert on the economy to tell their stories and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as to discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Today on the program, we're going to explore the world of independent investment management. Joining me to discuss is Thomas Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Securities. Caldwell Securities is a leading independent investment management firm. Thomas Caldwell graduated from McGill University in 1965 and has been actively involved in the investment industry since that time. Mr. Caldwell is chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd, an organization founded in 1980. Caldwell Securities Ltd is a diversified investment company with affiliated organizations providing investment management, brokerage, and insurance services to a broad spectrum of investors throughout North America and around the world. Mr. Caldwell is a retired honorary colonel of the Lincoln and Welland Regiment and is past governor of the Toronto Stock Exchange and one of the leading experts in capital markets. He was awarded Her Majesty's Golden Jubilee Medal in 2002 for his activities on behalf of Canadian veterans. In 2003, he was appointed a member of the Order of Canada. Welcome to the program, Mr. Caldwell. That is quite a resume. So tell us, private equity investing is something that many Canadians don't know a whole lot about. Can you give us a brief overview of what private equity actually is?
Well, typically companies finance themselves in several ways. Love capital, that's where your family and friends give you some money to start a business. Private equity is where individuals or corporations fund a company to bring it to the next level or to bail it out of a financial situation. And then public financing that is becoming listed on a stock exchange. That used to be a very attractive means for newer enterprises, not so anymore to the extent the regulations are so costly. Private equity has become really the interesting area. Unfortunately, it precludes many individual investors from getting into that area. You have to be accredited, or you have to be someone who specializes in that area.
So we'd love to hear how you started your company over 40 years ago.
Well, I had a fair amount of experience in the investment business. I was 37 when I did start the firm, and I enjoyed the business. I enjoyed the firms I was with. I was with some excellent large firms, including Merrill Lynch and predecessor to Nesbitt Burns. I enjoyed my time there, but I wanted to try something different. I wanted to combine investment management and brokerage. That wasn't done in those days. I wanted to also have the ability to try things, to experiment, try new ideas. And this provided me a format for it. And I think part of it might have been the role model of my father. My father was an entrepreneur. And so starting something, building something was in the back of my brain, despite the fact I was doing very well in larger organizations.
So tell us, how do average Canadians get involved in a business like yours?
Well, it's like any business you're going to start, whether it be the investment industry or whatever. You should have some experience if you can. I started at a very low level in our industry as a messenger. Then I worked as a trader. I worked in every area of the business. I like the industry, as you know, from my graduate dates and how long I've been in the business. I've enjoyed it. For example, if I had a job selling, say, aluminum doors, and there's nothing wrong with that, I would learn everything about aluminum doors in the first month or two. And by month 3, I'd be going crazy. The beauty with the investment industry is it caters such a wide spectrum of my and other people's interests. Is whatever's happening in the world is relevant, whether it sadly is the Ukraine, commodity prices, politics, all of this goes into the mix of making decisions. So it does keep you mentally alert. So I enjoy it. So I love going to work every day.
So instead of bringing their money to the bank, would Canadians bring it to you to invest on their behalf?
Well, the ones that want to do well, yes. I think I look at our firm and not to demean any of the other firms. The banks provide a certain service. We're very big on personal service. I think a lot of investors have been sold a real bill of goods by saying, "Oh, investment success is how little you pay for commission." That's nonsense. The investment success is about ideas. It's not about the transactional cost. I mean, it's a false game. And part of my job is not only generating ideas, presenting them to people, but helping people quell their emotions.
We're back. I'm talking with Thomas Caldwell, chairman and founder of Caldwell Securities. Before the break, we were talking about how you built your company. Could you talk a little bit about your father? You mentioned him in the first segment, and I understand he also has an interesting story, and we'd love to hear about that.
Well, my father was an immigrant. He came from Ireland. And like all immigrants, he was fairly well educated, but he had to start off at a rather menial job. And he was working actually sweeping floors in a meat packing plant. So he eventually did start his own company and had a plant out in Ripley Avenue here in Toronto. And it was a successful business at the time. He died quite young. He was 47. I was 13 when my dad died, very suddenly of a heart attack, and which was difficult, but you get on with your life with whatever you have to do. But he did leave me with that power of example that he'd created something out of the air. It provided jobs, it provided an income, it provided some help for our family. So it was that power of example. It's like kids. Kids rarely listen to you, but they do watch you, and I watched them.
People wonder if their money is safe. How do you protect and provide safekeeping to them?
Well, safekeeping is one thing. Losing money in the market is another thing. But safekeeping, there's not a concern. All securities, whether they be held by a bank or our firm, are all held in the same place, the Canadian Depository for Securities. So they are segregated from the assets of the firm involved, whether it be a bank, whether it be a brokerage firm. The securities are there. They're held on behalf of the account. We do not have we have cash accounts, so nothing can impinge on those assets. We're also covered, as all investment firms are, by the Canadian Investor Protection Fund. So cash or whatever, they're segregated. There hasn't been a case of client loss in my career over 55 years in this business because of a result of a failure of a firm, because the assets are held by a bonded custodian separately, at least the securities are. So that's not an issue at hand. Where you're going to make or lose money is on the decisions you make.
So tell us about the decisions you make and how do you differentiate from just keeping your money in your checking account or investing with your local bank? What do you see as the major differences?
Well, returns are one. I mean, I run one pool that's fully taxed. It's a large pool. Start out at nothing, and I think our annual returns on that have been about 15% after tax, annually compounded since October 2002. Now, that's no promise of the future, but returns tend to be better when you put money in a bank or lend it to someone, you're getting no return on that money at all. You make money, and particularly in an inflationary environment, by owning stuff, whether it be a house, whether it be assets, that is stocks or part of a company. That's where you make your money over the long term, owning assets, and shares of public companies are one asset class that can do well for you. And we help people to do that and help them to control their emotions and stay in the game during the downturn, where the bargains live in the down periods.
Could you talk to the philanthropy that you do and what's near and dear to your heart? And we have a clip here from one of your philanthropic interests. So we're going to play the clip right now, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
You should be encouraged to be independent and self-reliant.
I'm Varsha here. I would like to say women are strength. They are architect in the society.
So, Mr. Caldwell, can you just walk us through what we're seeing here? These girls are celebrating, I think, Women's Day. So could you talk a little bit about some of your philanthropic efforts?
We own part of the Bombay Stock Exchange. When we go into a country, we don't want to go in as carpetbaggers. We want to do something to help out. So what we did is we funded an orphanage in Bombay for little girls, the Dorothy Caldwell Angel Nest Home. And we took in 30 girls. Maybe a couple have been left in garbage dumps, for Pete's sake. And we've run that for many years. And they're wonderful kids. There's such a joy. Our oldest girl, Rhea, just finished this year and got a full scholarship to one of the best medical schools in India. How much is an investment like that worth? That'll go long beyond the period of time I'm gone, that we've made a difference. We're not going to change India. We're not going to change the world. But being a little girl orphaned or unattached or in poverty is a very dangerous position in countries like India, because children are bought and sold. So we were able to provide homes, a great home, great education for these kids, and an opportunity to grow up. And they love each other. They refer to each other as their sisters. And whenever I'd go to Bombay, I'd always make some excuse that I had a meeting uptown. I'd go and see the kids.
Don't go away. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Welcome back. We're speaking with Thomas Caldwell, chairman and founder of Caldwell Securities. Mr. Caldwell, let's talk about the Canadian economy. What do you see as the biggest challenges in our economy right now?
Leadership and the lack thereof. Canada is really, in some ways, we're not even a country. You look at what we're going through now in energy, for example. In Asia, for example, Canada should have liquid natural gas plants in the west and the east coast to supply China and replace coal, and again in the east coast to supply Germany and the rest of Europe. We always miss the game because either governments address special interests or regional interests to the detriment of economic growth. If you're a leader wanting everybody to like you, you're not going to be much of a leader. We have to make decisions for economic growth, job creation, innovation, and we're not. We're running around dealing with issues that everybody thinks is important, but those issues seem to be a lot less important now with this Ukraine mess on our hands.
Absolutely. Here, you're talking to the choir, because I believe that we could have our clean liquefied natural gas to market and help China and India come off coal, and we could have prosperity here, and we could have a cleaner planet. So I'm right there with you. Mr. Caldwell, there's lots of talk about businesses leaving Canada and not growing here. What are you seeing?
I have said many times in the past, Canada is a wonderful country to start a business. We have an educated, keen workforce, innovative, but it's not a great company to build a business. And we almost have an anti-business skew, or not even a benign neglect, a hostile neglect. We regulate our companies, our new companies out of existence. We introduce barriers, and we all have these little side rules. Our economy is too small to have barriers between provinces. So in actual fact, companies will say, where's the biggest market? Well, the biggest market is in the United States. And we've had a lot of champion companies like BlackBerry, Nortel, Mitel, the original. They've ceased to exist because we don't seem to be able to think in bigger world scale terms. I've traveled the world. I own 37 exchanges around the world, and I would be in places like Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, all over the place, and I'd never run into Canadians trying to do business internationally. And we have lots of assets, capital that people really appreciate about Canadians, and we don't benefit from it. I don't think our governments have been thinking these ways, and we address too many special interest groups who are aggrieved and feel they've been offended by something or other, or provinces that don't want to have a pipeline go across their province. We got to be a country at some point. The world is too tough a place to be playing those silly bear games.
Yeah, and we certainly see Canadian innovation moving to the United States or offshore, and our great innovation becomes another country's success story. But
Absolutely.
There's also much talk about investment not only leaving Canada, but not coming to Canada. Why, and how do we change this?
Well, I think not coming is an interesting one because, we had just-in-time deliveries, automobile parts going across the border. Our American cousins are quite protectionist, they will thicken that border up if they feel you. For example, we pay a duty on lumber going into the States. The Russians don't pay duty on any lumber going. What's wrong with this picture? And I think Canada is seen as kind of hostile to business. For example, you have the Trans Mountain Pipeline to ship oil to the West Coast. We've had so many objections to that from Indigenous groups, environmental groups, et cetera. The original cost was $7 billion. Just with those legal delays, It's now $27 billion. You're having sabotage on projects like this. We've got to get over that stuff because people say, wait a second, too many problems up there. And you don't have a government that's really supportive of industry and economic growth. And listen, I'm conscious of social stuff big time, as much as anybody else, and environment as well. But we haven't had a balance. We've leaned too far into the social issues and not enough building for the next generation or two.
Yeah, and certainly if you don't have a strong economy and strong businesses and jobs, then you don't have the social programs that come from jobs and a tax base and companies coming here. So it really is a lose-lose, and you bring up a very important point. But we're going to go to break right now, and when we get back, we're going to put you on the hot seat, Mr. Caldwell, and we're going to ask you, if you're a politician, what you would do. So don't go away. We're going to be right back on Canadian Innovators. We're back, and with me today is Thomas Caldwell, chairman and founder of Caldwell Securities. Mr. Caldwell, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. This is the time in the program that I ask my guest, if you were a politician, what would the 3 things that you would do to preserve and grow jobs and innovation in Canada?
Right now, today, let me start with one simple message. We've seen massive inflation in energy usage, in the gas pump, heating our homes. Our prime minister put in a carbon tax on heating your home. Everyone watching this, if they have a house, they're paying $50 to $80 a month on a carbon tax so that our PM can say he's meeting some kind of Paris Accords. That's ridiculous. Canadians, we live in Canada. We want to stay warm in the winter. Why tax Canadians on wanting to stay warm on the heating bill for their homes? Get rid of that. It's not going to kill me. It's $50 or $80 a month. I can live with that. But it hurts a lot of people. You're talking between $500 to $1,000 a year just for this tax. And listen, the money isn't going to put up windmills or anything else. And if it is, we can do it without it for a bit. And that carbon tax can also flow through into gasoline. And that puts more money back into Canadians' pockets to deal with this inflation that we're dealing with. But politicians will not give up sources of capital that they can, waste money on. Second item I do is simplify things. Regulations. It is so hard to do things in Canada. We are strangled with regulations, not only in real estate development, business development, securities law, regulated to the point that you don't do anything. So we've got to cut regulations. And it also means simplify taxes, simplify the tax system, and if possible, reduce it. And I think thirdly, make decisions for Canada, make them for Canadians. Think in a bigger picture. Don't get trapped into the political correctness of buying votes from special or regional interests by giving them money for offenses real and imagined. Let's go forward. Frankly, I can't do anything about what has happened 100 years ago. If I could change something in my life a day ago, I would do it, but I can't. Let's make decisions on a go forward basis and stop wasting money. If you feel been aggrieved, so what? Get over it. Politicians have got to run a country for the future, build it for the future, and make decisions for Canadians, not just for these special groups. And people are objecting to it. In fact, even I think that truckers thing was part of that. They got focused and painted as extreme, but it was Canadians saying, we're not happy with what's going on. Forget the issues at hand. And sadly, our politicians decided they would shoot the messenger instead of getting the message. We're not happy. Changes have to be made. But carbon tax, I could do that today, and it would save you money tomorrow morning.
I vote for you, absolutely, 100%. And we are seeing that carbon tax really hitting middle-class families and lower incomes families, because they're going to have to make decisions on eating or heating. And we saw this with the green energy in Ontario. But let me get to the minute we have left. And I'd love to hear your predictions for the economy in the next 2 years. We have this conflict and war in Russia and the Ukraine. What do you think is going to happen?
I think the Western economies will continue to grow, America, and we'll be dragged along a little bit with them. I think it will be a matter of, are we near our potential? And I would say we are not. There's so much we can do. We are so blessed in this country. But, as was said about someone years ago, we never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. We've got to be smarter. We need some adults in government.
Absolutely. So we're going to just have about 30 seconds left, and I'd love to hear your opinion on the impact the Emergency Measure Act had on the business investment in Canada.
I think for Canadians generally, it scared them. It was government going beyond. I don't want to hear anybody in Ottawa, particularly the Liberal Party, and I don't want anyone. I don't want anybody in Ottawa ever say Canadian values again, because that was not Canadian values. If people come and protest, you go out and hear what they've got to say and at least listen to them. But when you decide you're going to jail people, ban them from getting bail and being released, seize property, freeze assets, that's not Canada. That's Eastern Europe or that's Russia. It's not Canada. Please don't ever use Canadian values from anybody coming out of Ottawa. And I don't care how inconvenienced they were. Get over it.
I agree with you. So thank you, Mr. Caldwell. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for joining us on Canadian Innovators, and we'll see you next time.